Good morning, ladies. This is week 5 of Living Well at Citadel, and it is our second part of the addiction classes that we're doing on carbohydrate addiction, understanding it, what it means, and if you struggle with it, how to overcome it. So we're going to get right into it today. Let me share my screen with you. And let's see. All right. Here is the addiction cycle that we talked about last week. We talked about the emotional triggers and how the addiction cycle starts with some sort of triggering event. It moves on then to cravings and then ritual behavior, which are the activities or the ways that we prepare to have our drug of choice. And then is the using, and that leads to guilt and shame, which unfortunately often, because of how we feel guilty and then ashamed, that will be a triggering event to start the whole cycle over. So this is that cycle that we want to break. All right. And most addictive behavior follows this cycle. Let's see. Addiction itself is not the problem. It is the attempt to solve a problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today is what problem are we trying to solve with our addiction, with whatever it is that we're leaning to and turning to for comfort. So the first question is, what problem are we trying to solve? And if the triggers are emotional and not physical hunger, then we must deal with the emotional side of eating. And I'm telling you that as a coach, this is something we always deal with. Like we always start with all the things that we did with this class of teaching you, helping you understand metabolic health, helping you understand why you crave the way that you do, even just from a physical aspect. And it's kind of like people get started and they start making changes and doing things, but after a very short amount of time, most people realize that the addiction is not just to food, it's an addiction to the solving of an emotional issue and why they're eating. So another question is, how do we manage the emotional side of eating? Well, essentially, this comes down to how we regulate or control the emotions that trigger the cravings. And then, of course, once those are triggered, how do we stop them? How do we stop the cycle from happening? So there's a few different places in that addiction cycle that we can address to stop using our drug of choice, whatever that is. For us, we're focusing on carbohydrate and carbohydrates. We're going to come back to this as I'm going to give you some emotional management tools down as we get into this. But right now, I really want to look at how our brain processes discomfort. So our brain detects threats very quickly, but it is not as good at discerning whether the threat is truly dangerous or just uncomfortable. But its goal is always to protect us. Our brain wants us to be protected. And because it's trying to protect us, it operates under a better safe than sorry principle and is biased towards the negative or the worst case scenario. So our brain senses something's wrong by the way that we feel. And it wants to respond to protect us from feeling badly or from having pain of any kind. For instance, like I said, it always wants to go towards that worst case scenario. If you think about it, the sting of criticism is often much deeper, that we feel it much deeper than we feel the joy from a compliment. And that is just the way our brain is wired to protect us from danger. So like that criticism feels like a threat. So our brain is going to kick up the juices to our adrenaline to address that. This is all still rooted in the brain's desire to protect us from disconnection from the tribe, or in the case of food, it wants to protect us from famine, or it wants to protect us from saber-toothed tigers in the bushes when we hear a twig snap. because it just doesn't know what is the danger. It just senses that we have done some, we have felt that danger. And again, this can also come back just to boredom, the discomfort of boredom or loneliness. Our body can trigger our responses to that. Okay. Our body will trigger a response. And something happens in us when we trigger emotion. If food is connected to that emotion in any way, it could cause a craving. So if we are sad, and you think about in the movie, every movie you've seen where the woman breaks up, she's sitting with a tub of ice cream. It's kind of programmed into us now. We think of it that way. We think of that's the comfort. That's what we need. It can be joy. It can be the excitement of the birthday party. We have to have cake, we think, and maybe you do, but it doesn't have to take you down the spiral road of the crazy cycle, if we can stop that. Or anxiety and stress can often trigger the desire for crunchy foods, ironically. Interestingly enough, we're feeling crunchy and we want crunchy. It's an emotional response. It's an emotional management system that our brain is doing for us to keep us safe and not feeling pain or discomfort. Okay. So if food has been a comfort, it will be craved when the body feels any threat of discomfort. Like I said, bored, lonely, angry, whatever. And then the cycle can get into full swing before we know it. So how do we stop this innate pattern? Well, first of all, I want to ask you, what is your why? I want you to look at this from a different angle, okay? Think about your goals. Say, for example, you want to lose 50 pounds. Let me tell you a not true story that hopefully helps you think of this a little bit differently when you say, because a lot of times I coach people and they're like, I just can't do it. There's just no way I could give up sugar, or I could give up this or that. Like, these are things that are staples in my life, and I need them and I'm going to have them. Okay, let's hash this out. Let's think about this story, okay? Because with your goals, you have a library probably of how-to books on how to get healthier, how to lose weight, and what to do, all the necessary changes that it would take, and yet you don't do it. And I didn't do it, all those wonderful how-to books just become a big to-do list, and I don't get it done. And it just is like, in the background telling me I need to do it. But what if instead of that strategy that's failed so often, your why changed? What is your why? Why do you want to do this? And for us, it's been, I just really want to lose that 50 pounds. That's all good and fine. But let's tell a story that your 3-year-old daughter needs life-saving surgery in the next 3 months. And the doctors will do it, but they will not take cash or credit card. What they will take is from you a 50-pound proven fat loss. All right. Unmedicated, only by changing your diet. And it must be fat loss. So you can't just starve yourself. You have to do this correctly. You have to be metabolically healthy and lose 50 pounds to save your daughter's life. Well, if you're anything like me, suddenly this nice to have goal of losing 50 pounds turns into a must have goal. And if that happened, something in you would activate, right? You would be determined, committed. You would muster every bit of courage and grit and fortitude possible to make this happen for your child. I know you would do that. And there'd be no question of if you could do it, you would do it. You would awaken all that dormant moxie and you would do it. You would turn your should into your must. A shift would happen in your brain, and it would start in your thoughts and in your brain. Why? Your why changes. That's the key here. All of a sudden, your why changes. This must-have moment is also sometimes called a Harajuku moment. And I believe that term was possibly coined by Malcolm Gladwell. Tim Ferriss talks about it in one of his books. And it's that Harajuku moment is when someone has an epiphany and undergoes enough of a shift in their thinking and their reality to make a significant change. It's that turning point, that line in the sand, a life-altering aha moment. It's your why changes. Your why becomes so powerful that you want to do different. It initiates an I'll do whatever it takes attitude. And I believe that the most successful and lasting changes in our life happen in these times. When we see that not changing is more painful than changing. Because often we think, it's too hard to change. But all of a sudden, your hard becomes not changing. And that's when life can really kick us in the butt to do what we know we need to do. And we can create these moments without the life of our child being in danger. That is the good news. We can create these aha moments when we decide that our why is big enough to change our world around us. It might be illness or threat of impending illness. For me, it was autoimmune disease that I could see taking me down a really bad road. And it was starting to affect my everyday life. I don't know what it is for you. It could be just the desire to be healthier and live longer, to not want to get cancer, which is definitely in higher numbers of people who eat higher carbohydrates. There's no question about statistically. When we reach that aha moment and when we say that, when that happens, we start a journey by creating new habits. And we don't just break the old habits and say, I'm not going to do that again. We replace those habits. Basically, we start editing those habits. All right. So instead of this leading to a downfall in the way that I eat, we're going to switch that habit up and we're going to refigure how that habit is done. We don't want to just focus on stopping something. We want to focus on what we want to do instead and edit that habit. Okay. Anyone who has not read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, I highly recommend it. For our group, I put the link in our group page on Facebook. And but it's James Clear is the author, and the book is called Atomic Habits. Get the Audible, get the paperback. If you're anything like me, you're going to need both, because you're going to listen, you're going to take notes, you're going to want to. It's so powerful. It's one of those books that I would say is a life-changing, everyone should read kind of book. I have a handful of those in my life. I know there's that one. There's another one by Brene Brown, and The Gifts of Imperfection was a life-changing book for me. Whole nother subject, but anyways, so a lot of times we know what we want to do, or we know also what we don't want. We don't want to be overweight. We don't want to be insecure. We don't want to be healthy. But then we have to think about, what do we want? And we need to get clear on that. And that's why this week I'm asking you to write out your why. Like, take some serious time and write out, what is my why? And make it important and make it life-changing. It needs to be that thing that you look back to when you're tempted and you say, I'm not going to forget my why. Why am I choosing right now not to have fries with my bunless burger? Why am I choosing a salad on the side instead? Because in this moment, I think, meh, no big deal. Just one time. Think about your why. That is the moment that matters. That is the meal that matters. Every single time you have to tell yourself, this meal matters. Not just, I'll do better on Monday, I'll start again tomorrow. No, we have to get to the point where we start going, you know what? In the middle of the day on Friday, if I've blown it all week, I'm going to start over. and I can. And it's only a limiting belief that tells me I have to wait for a new day or a new week. We can change that. We can edit those thoughts and we can grow. So what do you want? Be clear on it. Write it out this week. All right. Forming new habits. Now, this isn't exactly the way that the James Clear book takes you, but this is like an addendum. Like this could be added to everything he teaches. It all goes together. This is just a different way to look at it. I just didn't want you to think getting this, oh, I've got what's in the book. No, there's so much great stuff in that book. You got to get that book too. Number one, a fresh start. You're ready for change. You're determined. There is something to be said about having a fresh start. This is an exciting stage of your journey and you are ready for change. All right. And more motivated than ever. Your heart is fully in it and you are engaged in the process with grit, determination, and moxie. Like this is I got this. I cleaned out all my cupboards and got all the junk food out. I'm going to the store and I'm loading up on some good stuff. And, you're mindful of your goals and the steps that it's going to take to reach them. You've started a lifelong journey now of health and wellness. And that is very important that when you start this time, this is the last time you start this journey. Okay. There may be relapses and times you get back on track, but this is it. When you start this time, this is the start. You don't stop and start over because 6 months down the road, if you have, you just go through a bad season and you're like, no, I have to start over. No, you don't, because look at how much you just learned in that last 6 months. You're not starting over. We're doing one more fresh start in your life. Okay. One more. And this is a lifelong journey of health and wellness. This is not a quick fix and it will evolve over time. What this journey looks like will be different as you dial in what works best for you. Just examples, things like, different kinds of foods. Some of you are going to do really well with dairy. Some of you are not. Some of you are going to be able to have more fruit than others and do better and be able to lose weight. Others will not. You'll have to really restrict that and be careful. What are your goals? What are your goals? That's going to determine what your journey looks like. People ask me all that, well, can I have this or can I do that? Well, what's your goal? If your goal is just to eat whole foods, then yeah, eat all the fruit you want. But if your goal is to lose weight, you're going to have to dial that back and really pay attention to your blood sugar. So this is your journey. You do what you want. All right. You want to be on a ketogenic, you want to be in ketosis, then there's a certain way you have to eat for that. You just want to eat low carb, then there's a certain way to eat for that. Then you get under 50 carbs a day. Keto, under 20 carbs a day. Generally low carb, under 100 carbs a day. Anytime you're pulling out processed foods and fast foods out of your diet, and now processed foods includes all the sugars and starches, like processed starch, flours and stuff like that. Anytime you do that, you are going to feel better. So if that is just your beginning goal, is to get the processed food and takeout and fast food and junk out of your diet, please start there. Please start there. You are going to improve your metabolic health incredibly. But then if you want to start dialing in and really losing weight, you'll lose weight that way. But once you kind of hit a plateau and you need to go to the next level, then you start to evolve your diet and your plan and your journey. That's okay. All right. But this is not a quick fix. This is not a quick fix. This is a committed journey for the rest of your life. And I believe women over 40 are here for it. You're ready for it. You're seeing yourself in this stage in a new light as you reinvent yourself and your identity. Your purposes are taking shape in new and concrete ways. That's a big part of that book, Atomic Habits. He gets into your identity, that you start changing who you are. You start changing how you see yourself. So and that's the difference of saying, well, I run sometime, or, I go out and I run occasionally. And then the difference of calling yourself, I am a runner. Now it's become part of who you are. And that is powerful when you see something as part of who you are. For me, I think I am low carb. Like I eat a low carb, high fat diet. That is That's part of who I am now. I don't know how I am metabolically healthy. I am choosing to be metabolically healthy, and I make choices. And so it becomes part of who I am. And for you, it becomes part of who you are, that you are choosing to have wellness and health. All right. Make it part of your identity. It's who you are. It's very powerful. Number two is the fight through. This is when we embrace that moxie mindset of determination and courage and grit. Challenges and setbacks, this is where they are. They're expected. That honeymoon period is kind of over. Now we're in the thick of it. And this is where the moxie comes in. You might get knocked down from time to time and possibly taken off track by life's detours, but you will use these as learning experiences, as a chance to see where you need to update and rework your strategies while holding strong to the core values of your journey. You'll stay determined and courageous and embrace a moxie mindset here. All right. One that fights through temptation with the understanding that you get stronger every single time you resist a craving. All right. Fighting through lays down deep tracks in your brain. And you do this when you don't feel like it. And this is exactly when you're in that restaurant and you want the fries instead of the side salad, or you want the bun instead of the no bun on your burger, or you really would rather have pasta, or you're sitting there at a Mexican restaurant and you're going, you know what, just a few chips. I don't know about you, but that never works well for me. I have to just go into like, no chips at all, because what's the point? What's the point of having 3 if you can't have 30? And so, and you don't want to have the 30, and you really don't even want to have 3 because it's going to trigger your brain to want more. So this is that fight through. This is that I am determined. This season is not about motivation, because motivation, we always think, well, I need more motivation. No, you don't. You need fight through. It's that follow through and that fight through. Remember, failure is a huge component to success. It's part of success. Failure is. So if you fail in this season, you get back up and you go, what can I learn from that? The day after a binge, the day after the meal, the hours after, what was I doing? What led me down that path? How do I feel right now? Learn from that. Learn from that. When you fail, learn. How did it feel? Let that learning give you strength to fight harder next time. And every single time you say no to something, you say no to that basket of chips, you say no to stopping at that donut shop, you say no to grabbing that candy bar when you're getting your gas, you say no to those things every single time, you're getting stronger. And you remind yourself of that. You remind yourself, I just got a little bit stronger. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you're like, oh, I still want it, I still want to go back and get it. Nope, I got stronger. I just got stronger. That will help your brain lay down a deep track and set a new habit in your life. All right. Number 3, forming that new habit. This is when it becomes second nature, when you don't have to think about it as much. And it does happen, especially when you're eating nutritious foods that are satiating you. You're not going to be as prone to those cravings as long as you're not having those little bits of sugar throughout the day and those little bits of stuff. You're going to be stronger, and you won't be as tempted, and you won't have the cravings as much. I promise. It happens. When you form that new habit, it becomes second nature, and it doesn't require a lot of energy anymore. You're using a lot of energy in that fight through stage. And you're going to go through that with all different foods, all those, as your journey evolves, it might be that you're choosing to, just ice cream. I'm not going to have ice cream. And you're going to go through that whole process with just ice cream. Well, then once that's done, you may have to face it with something else. Like, well, I've been letting myself have some bread here and there, but it's got me stalled. I can't seem to move on with my weight loss. And so you're going to be, okay, now we're going to go through the whole fight through with the bread, and then it's going to get easier. It does. I promise. You formed a new healthy habit that will help you live longer and a happier life. Here's a quote I should have put on a meme, and maybe I'll do this in our group. Living by our cravings is pursuing pleasure over pursuing happiness. I want you to pursue happiness. That's what this journey is about, is pursuing happiness, not just pleasure. All right. We recognize that life happens though, and there are obstacles and stumbling blocks along the way, but you're never going back to that former self who couldn't overcome these. All right. You've changed. At this stage, you've grown, you have moxie, you get how to fight through, you know how to do this, you've learned a lot. Your journey is not the same as it was before the fresh start, and it will be different in a year. It will look so different. You're now focused on getting stronger and helping others on their journeys too. And you are taking the things that you've learned and putting them into practice. You've reached some goals, but you're still on a purposeful journey to become the woman God created you to be. All right. So now let's look at some of these stumbling blocks. And a lot of times we are our own stumbling block, such as negative self-talk or catastrophizing. Studies have found that athletes who talk negatively to themselves perform worse than athletes who speak more positively. Rumination, or getting stuck in your head with negative thoughts, can contribute to depression and feelings of hopelessness and a lack of motivation. All right. Negative self-talk makes people feel more anxious. If you're talking negative about yourself, you're going to have a horrible time in that fight through stage. You just are. You know, it gets in the way of doing your best at tasks and that you want to succeed at, whether it's tests, sporting events, social interactions, creating healthy habits, whatever it is. Negative self-talk is going to keep you stuck. When we engage in that negative self-talk, our brain hears it. Our brain knows what we're ruminating on. And we typically make poor decisions for ourselves and for the world around us, for our family even. These types of statements are also called me, always, everything statements, and they create an overall attack on our character. All right. I'm always messing everything up. You know, it's also known, like I said, as catastrophizing. We'll take one little setback and mentally make it a series of seemingly logical jumps that ultimately end up at an illogical conclusion. All right. We just cascade, we spiral in our brain. That me, always, everything thinking and catastrophic self-talk makes you less resilient and disengages your moxie, because you start to believe that your efforts are worthless and that change isn't possible. The result is a paralyzing feeling of hopelessness and stagnant inaction. So how do we break that cycle? Well, we're going to reprogram your self-talk. And a lot of people think this means just saying positive things in the mirror, and that'll give you the motivation you need for success. That's not true. The power of your words is built on the belief behind those words. Your brain is really smart, and it knows when you're lying. So to just look in a mirror and say, I'm smart and beautiful, when you don't believe it, will not help. I mean, I guess it can't hurt, but it also kind of, your brain goes, yeah, you're lying. You know, like, I am never going to eat sugar again as long as I live. And like, really, your brain knows that's probably not true. You know, so don't lie to yourself. Your brain is really, really smart. It knows when you're lying. So to just do that isn't helpful. But changing the negative self-talk to affirming words and phrases that you can believe will change your outlook and give you hope. And that's hope. Hope is what motivates you to make lasting changes. You can't rewrite your past story. All right. It is your story. Looking back, the good, the bad, the ugly are all part of your story. We're not going to deny reality. We're not going to deny even the present reality, but we're choosing hope instead of hopelessness. We're choosing to look forward, creating new beliefs and new dialogue that rewire our brain for hope and success. When I coach women one-on-one, we go through that negative self-talk stuff, and what is called limiting beliefs are very similar and kind of go hand in hand with this. And we break down, and I ask things like, okay, where did that thought come from? What fear could be attached to that thought? Excuse me. Often there is an underlying fear attached to that thought. And if you think, I just don't do well in crowds, the underlying fear, I'm going to guess, is probably that I will be rejected. And then I will be lonely. And then I will be by myself. And none of us wants that. So thinking about where did that fear, where did the thought come from? What is the fear behind it? Does my heart maybe need some emotional healing? Like then you take that thought of nobody, well, first of all, it's not necessarily true. And what can I do to change that? If I was in a situation where no one was talking to me, well, I could walk up and talk to someone. I could compliment them on something. I could just start a conversation. I could ask them a question. I could be interested in them and not just sitting there focused on myself. All right. Does our heart need emotional healing? Why do we believe these things? These are the questions I ask when I'm coaching. Why do we believe that? How can you replace that negative self-talk and limiting belief with truth, with what God says about us and what the possibilities actually are? Let me grab a cough drop. We choose to focus when we need to focus on these words that are affirming, helpful, hopeful, kind, encouraging. I have some great Ricola made these. They're sugar-free, but they're made with stevia. Finally, cough drops you can actually use and not have to worry about your blood sugar. Hopeful, kind, encouraging. These are the words we're looking for. It's not about, I don't want you to think this is a power of positive thinking. This is all just, it's about recognizing where the thoughts came in, what's in my heart, what's behind the thought that brought the thought that makes me believe it, and what can I do with that? So it's more therapeutic than just, I'm going to just hammer through and say all the positive things. I'd rather have you saying the positive things than the negative self-talk, but let's take it deeper and let's do some healing and let's figure out, or is there something I'm grieving? Could there be something in these thoughts that I'm grieving, the loss of something? And let yourself grieve that. Maybe it's a thought that came in as a child. You felt worthless and hopeless and unworthy. Let's bring these to God. Let's get, and if you need, talk with someone. Reach out. I'm here. I'm not a licensed therapist, but my goodness, I've walked through this kind of stuff with hundreds and hundreds of people over the years. So you know what? You can do this, but let's heal. Let's not just be silly about it. Let's do some healing and let's grow, because this is the stage of life we're in, right? Now let's look at some emotional management tools to help you overcome carbohydrate and eating addiction. All right. We've got to create new management habits around that emotion that's triggering us. Okay. So emotional management habits other than eating for pleasure and for comfort. And thankfully, there are so many other ways to give our brain the comfort, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin that it needs, other than food or drug or vice or whatever it is, other than something that's addictive. There are so many other ways to calm and quell those cravings for food. Number one, prayer. I believe I'm talking to all Christians here. Prayer, relationship with God, talking to Him gives us oxytocin, a hormone that is very, very good for us. Very, very good for us. And it will make us a sense of calm, a sense of belonging, a sense of feeling loved and worthy. And now this isn't just, I'm not talking about just do your devotions, ladies, hammer through, get them done. I'm talking about a relationship with God. I'm talking about prayer. I'm talking about having an actual conversation with the Lord, sharing your heart. Maybe you do it through prayer. Maybe you do it through journaling. Whatever it looks like for you, studying the Word of God, reading part of the Bible, and it's not about rallying to read the whole Bible in a year. If you want to do that, great. That's a wonderful goal. But I want this to matter. I'd rather you read 2 verses that touch your heart and really cause you to meditate on it and think about it and help you grow, and stuck on that for 3 weeks on those 2 verses and let God open them up to you and speak to your heart and minister life and hope and healing to you, then I would like, oh, we accomplished 18 chapters. You do you, but make it matter, let God touch your heart in life. Under prayer, I have music. I think music is powerful. Put on some music that lifts your heart and your soul. This alone can change your whole day. Creativity and creative arts, crafting is a lot of times we think of crafting. There's quilting, you like to do that kind of thing. That is great. Get creative, paint, color, whatever it is, write. If writing is your creativity, I said last night, some of us, not me necessarily, but I understand this, might feel creative creating spreadsheets. If whatever makes you feel alive, whatever makes you create something and do something that is kind of new and fresh and creative, do that. It's powerful. It is a wonderful emotional management tool to use instead of eating. It's wonderful. Physical activities and even hobbies, walking, cleaning, getting up, doing something, working around the house, going to work, gardening, farming, getting outside as much as possible, getting sunlight. All these are just powerful things. Sleep. Naps are a great emotional management tool. A short nap in the mid-afternoon can boost your memory, improve job performance, lift your mood, make you more alert, and ease stress. Now, maybe you work and you're like, there's no way I can fit that in. Try it on the weekends. When you're home and that refrigerator and the cupboards are calling your name. Still, if you're like me and you've got college kids that come home, so there's food in your house that you don't want to eat, but it's there. Take a quick nap. Just take a little time out. It just might be the reset that your brain needs and work as an emotional management tool for you. Delay gratification. This is powerful. And you're going to do a lot of this in that fight through stage of creating new habits. You get stronger each time you choose to delay gratification, and you make a decision to not immediately satisfy that craving. That is powerful. Make a decision in that moment. I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk out of the room. They say our walking through a doorway is almost like resetting a tab in our brain. Like that's why a lot of times you get in the other room and you're like, wait, what did I come in here for? I do that all the time because your brain kind of does a little quick reset every time you walk through a doorway. So if you're in a room and you're in get out of the kitchen, get out of the room where the food is, and just walk in a different room and go do something for just a few minutes, even throw a load of laundry in, whatever it is, just a distraction. But delaying gratification is a powerful tool to reach your goals. You might think, well, wait a minute, I'm going to feel so deprived. I don't like to feel deprived. But let me tell you a little secret. You're always depriving yourself of something. Always. So when you deprive yourself of chocolate and stuff like that, or a treat, that's what you're depriving yourself of. When you give yourself those treats that you know are going to cause damage to your body, you're depriving yourself of health. You're depriving yourself of feeling good later. You might be getting that chocolate or that treat now, but in an hour, you might be angry or frustrated. If you're like me, that happens almost every time. Like all of a sudden, I feel myself anxious and I'm like, oh, it's because I ate that. It's not even this is not all about weight loss. This is about feeling good emotionally, physically, spiritually. You're always depriving yourself of something. So pick what you want to deprive yourself of. I want to deprive myself of a food that then will allow me to feel good later. Whereas if you're like, well, I've got this fear of deprivation and not getting well, you're always depriving yourself of something. It's kind of like the pick your hard. Yeah, this is hard. Pick your hard. How easy is type 2 diabetes? It's not so easy. It's hard. Pick your hard. When we choose to deprive ourselves of those things, we choose life. I'm sorry. health, and peace. Excuse me. And thank you for all you who just blessed me, even though it was a video. So if you say yes, the urges are going to come back even stronger. All right. So think about that. If you say no, you weaken those urges and they're not as strong the next time. So choose wisely. Every time you resist a craving, you get stronger, and celebrate that every time because you just got stronger. Let's be honest. Instant gratification also, let's just be honest. It's hedonistic and it's gluttonous, and it can be. Okay, let's say it that way. If instant gratification, if we cannot break that, we've got some deeper issues. If we really can't break these things that we are going to need to go to God with and possibly repent for. And I don't even get into that in these 6 weeks, but it's definitely something that I walk through with people of what does God's word say about this? And maybe I'll try to get some things thrown in our group about that for those of you who are interested in that. But delaying gratification shows restraint. It shows self-control, which is part of the fruit of the Spirit. So it's powerful. And then human connection. I saved my favorite for last. This kind of blows everything else I said out of the water. This is powerful. So how many of you have heard the story of the of addiction based on the rats, where they had water or they had cocaine water combination they could choose from? Well, the rats chose the drug water all the time. They got addicted and eventually overdosed. All of them. But after this, one researcher looked at that and said, you know what? We're putting a rat in an empty, isolated cage, and he has nothing else to do but drink that. And it makes him feel good. And it's all he has to do. What if this has something to do with the setting that they're in? So to test his hypothesis, he puts the rats in what he called a rat park, where they have, among others, they're among other rats. They're free to roam. They're free to play, to socialize, to have sex. They were also given 2 options to drink from. They rarely, turns out, drank from the drug-filled bottle. And when they did, it was intermittently, it was not obsessively, and they never overdosed. The rats went from almost 100% overdose in the first one, the first test, when they were isolated, to 0% when they had happy and connected lives. So when the rats were living happy and connected lives, they didn't need the drug. At the same time, a human experiment was happening called the Vietnam War. 20% of the people were using loads of heroin on the battlefield to escape, for comfort. But when they returned home, 95% of those people stopped using heroin. And I looked this up to make sure it was correct, because I was like, okay, before I tell you this, I want to know this is true. And sure enough, I found it. It was true. This is all true. So it said among U.S. soldiers in the first year after returning to the United States, only 1% became re-addicted to heroin, although 10% of them tried the drug after their return. Which leads us to question the hypothesis that addiction is solely based on the drug of choice. It appears it's not. What if it's less about the chemical hooks or the carbohydrate hooks or the dopamine hooks, and it's more about the cage? What if addiction is an adaptation to your environment? Maybe it shouldn't be called addiction, but instead called bonding. We have a natural and innate need to bond. If we can't bond with people due to isolation, trauma, or some other reason, you will bond with something that will give you relief. Could be gambling, porn, pot, cannabis, food, but you will bond with something because that's our nature. That's how we were created, was to bond. And of course, to bond with God is number 1 for us. But if we're not turning to God, and we're not turning to the healthy bonding, and we don't have healthy emotional management tools to do these things, and we don't do those things, then we're going to bond with something. And so often it's food. It's food. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Most of us could afford to buy vodka and drink it all day long, but we don't. Why? Because we have things we love, people we love that we're bonded to that would suffer if we did. A core part of addiction is not being able to bear to be present in your life. Okay? We think we are most connected. We are the most connected society ever, but Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok are not close friends. The connections we think we have are a parody of human connection. And this is interesting. The amount of floor space we have in our homes has been steadily increasing. It's kind of a metaphor here. We've traded floor space for friends. We've traded stuff for connections. And now we're the loneliest generation of all time. Life looks much more like the isolated cage and less like the rat park. Disconnection is a major driver of addiction. Major driver of addiction. So these are more questions too to ask ourselves. Like, what is the thought? What am I looking for? What am I missing? And how is connection maybe a part of that? So your homework I want you to do, I want you to write your why. I want you to write a serious why. Why am I? And the why is, why do I want to start this journey? Why do I want to start this journey? What does your life look like down the road if you start it? And what does your life look like if you don't? That's all part of your why. Okay. Next question. If you struggle with carbohydrate addiction, I think most of us do, how does connection play a role? Meaning, if you look at, is there a sense, are you lacking connection in certain ways? Where do you need to be bonded that you're letting that bond be food? I want you to explore that question. I would love for you to share these with me. But again, this is your journey. That's up to you. But I would love to hear. All right, that's all I have for today. But I'm also going to put together kind of a survey, a different survey that helps me know how this class has helped you. We've got one more week, and we're going to kind of wrap up a lot of loose ends with that week. We still have a lot to share, so week 6 is going to be good. And then but I am going to create a survey, like I was saying, that you can help me. And even if you can help me, if you're interested in writing a review of this course and how it's helped you, that would just mean the world to me. And it would help me in future materials. It would help me in creating other classes. What should be the next class? What would you like to see me explore deeper? And then one more thing for the people in the Living Well at Citadel class, I want to offer you some personal one-on-one coaching at no cost. All right. So if you are interested in that, I'm also going to have you let me know that on that survey. If you would like a month of coaching, whatever that looks like, I would like to offer you that. I'd like to stay connected. I feel like our class has been really informational, but there hasn't been a lot of coaching and a lot of one-on-one. And so if you are interested, I really want to offer that as part of this class. So thank you. Have a wonderful week. Where am I? I can't find myself on here. Oh, stop my screen sharing. All right. Have a great day, ladies. And I will see you next week. Some of you I know can't be there next Tuesday for the last week. You are missed. And have a wonderful week.